Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Let Me Tell You Why That's Bullshit. We've had a little bit of a spotty record lately, a little bit of hiatus with vacations and stuff. We're back. There's a lot of shit to talk about. German Rio, how are you?
Well, as optimistic as you can be.
Yeah. So we were just talking about how German's the optimistic one, regardless of whether or not he thinks he is.
And I'm alive, so I mean that's kind of where I'm at. So
And
That's
Rio's
good.
going into grad school, so he's already got grad school feelings.
yeah, reading 25 articles is so much fun, right?
Someone's got
worry,
to be
soon-
optimistic in this conversation, I guess, right?
Don't worry, soon you'll be able to read like a grad student and you'll be able to get through that in like an evening. You just have to learn how to read those articles, Rio. I'll teach you when you come over next week.
Sure.
You should teach me too, Nick.
Okay. We'll have a sit down. We'll have a sit down at our dinner in August.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
God, they're gonna actually make me do that, guys. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Pierre Poilievre's by-election. We are going to talk about Carney caving to Trump. Headline, guys, not necessarily my words. If there's time, we're going to talk about the Trump regime's quick policy change on Ukraine. There is a quick update on Signalgate. What's his name? Garcia. Garcia, whose name you might know from him being sent, one of the first people sent to El Salvador, is suing the federal government of the United States of America for human rights abuses, because go figure. So we'll talk about that. But our main story today will be Epstein, because of course it will. It's all anybody's talking about. Trump's guilty as sin. And yeah, so let's just like jump right into it. We'll start with the Canadian stuff, I think, because we could go on forever and then not actually get to the Canadian stuff. So let's start. You guys want to start with Pierre Poilievre? You know you do. We're Albertans. We got to talk about it.
Exciting.
Okay, let's get this rolling.
Let me bring up this article because I do want to kind of just sort of go through this to give context. So Polievre is running in what's the name of that riding? I can't remember. It's like a little Alberta town. That was like the one thing I didn't look up.
Yeah.
Battle River. I knew it was something with a B. So he's running in Battle River Crowfoot by-election, which takes place later this summer, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's closer to the fall, though.
Yeah, it's like the first week of September or something like that, which is technically still summer. Fall doesn't start till September 21st, German.
Fair enough.
Don't take summer away from us. Now... he's been making headlines for two reasons this week, and we'll kind of talk about both of them. The first is obviously the longest ballot committee. He has some things to say about them because they're back to trolling him, but in Alberta this time. And then the second thing is his upcoming leadership review, because he has been pretty quiet and the media is taking note of that. And there's a lot of like, I want to say rumors, but it's more like the media are talking to their insiders that don't want to go on record to say that his leadership support is, to put it lightly, waning. So we'll talk kind of about that at the end of this. So Polievre is running in the by-election in Alberta, Battle River. But the longest ballot committee, whom you might remember were the ones that sponsored people to run against him in his 20-year riding in Ottawa and resulted in 91 names on the ballot. Well, in Alberta now there's over 50 names, which might not sound like that's almost less than like half of what they got in Ottawa, but that's pretty significant for an Alberta like Alberta in general. There are not many people willing to troll in the most conservative riding in Canada. That riding usually wins by like 91% conservative. This is going to be important later, kind of towards the end of our conversation. One of the things, though, that I kind of wanted to talk about, because we spent a lot of time talking about how the conservatives really scare me because they do have a lot of policies and tendencies to want to stomp on your rights, your democratic rights. And this sort of also just irked me because, yeah, the longest ballot committee is completely trolling them, but they're also it's a protest, right? They are peacefully protesting politically somebody that they think is awful. And here's what he said about it. There are a number of other things that you could do that would make it so that only real candidates who are truly running to put their name forward in our democracy are on that list. But either way, we have to take action because this is a scam. It's unfair, it's unjust, and must stop. So there are several parties that have come forward with names as well, including the United Libertarians, which should be no surprise. They have quite not like a super strong movement in Alberta, but there are a lot of libertarians here in Alberta. The Christian Heritage Party, which should surprise no one. And then there's names from like other more right-wing conservative parties, like the Republican Party of Alberta, which, yes, is a real thing, guys. Look it up. I don't know why they thought that this would be like a wave they could ride, but sure. So thoughts on Polievre. And I don't know why. This is sort of the thing I've picked because it just is irking me so much. Like anybody who can get their 1,000 signatures can put their name forward for a job as an MP, which I will remind you, he did right out of university. Okay, I'll shut up now. Rio, you go first.
Sure. First of all, I know we've talked about this before. Pierre Poilievre is taking the seat from the conservative MP who was in it, who was like, what was it, 1 year away from getting his pension? And
1
like,
year.
yeah, which honestly, to me, that would fuel into the protest if I was part of that, right? Because like, I would look at that and be like, wait a second, you've been a career MP for the last, like, what, 20 plus years? And like, you just took something away that someone could actually benefit from who actually lived in and served in the community, right? Meanwhile, you have Pierre Poilievre, who is an Albertan who's basically been an Ottawa elite for the last, again, 20 plus years, who just took that from him. So like, that could fuel into part of the protest, but I'm also just like, you know what? Yeah, make it 50 candidates. If you can make it more, make it more. Because like, if you don't like the guy, and like clearly the guy isn't even popular enough for like all of Canada at this point, right? And we talked about this during the election as well, how he fumbled a 40%, like what was it, a 40-point lead on the Liberal Party, and immediately just like dropped them from like shoe-in win to like, you know, barely
And
forming
refused to pivot.
opposition. Yeah, and refused to pivot, right? And like, so clearly something about him and his policies isn't really working very well, or it's not really resonating very well with Canadians. So yeah, that's my thought on that. I'm mostly just on board with the whole, like, yeah, protest the guy. Because like at the very least, he took a pension from someone who could actually use it and probably deserved it. So that's where I'm at. German.
Okay, well, you make a good point there, but I'll take a little bit of a different spin on it. I'll look at it from Pierre Poilievre's side. I get that he feels that it's kind of hindering his ability to get re-elected or elected back into the House of Commons and into Parliament. I get that part. And I understand why he's saying it is because of that. Another side of it I'll take is that as a Canadian and as a person who feels like democracy, voting is very important, I think as long as you can get those signatures, they should not be there's no way you can exclude someone from running in those elections. I get that it's kind of annoying for the person voting or people voting or whatnot, or annoying for, Pierre Poilievre and whatever. But at the same time, if people can get those 1,000 signatures, they have every right to put their name on the ballot.
And
I feel
from
like,
residents, and they can't just be any that. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. They have to be from residents in the community where he's running. So they
Yeah.
each got 1,000 unique signatures.
and if they can do that, there's no reason why they can't. And I get that he thinks it's a scam, he thinks it's a whatever, unjust and whatnot. But at the same time, if you can get those unique signatures and those unique voters that want to support you to run, why not? Like, I don't think it's a bad thing. And the more people we have running these elections, yes, it's a pain to vote for, and yes, it can be a pain to print out in school and whatnot, and annoying for the particular front runner candidate. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, to stop someone from running, right? So that's the way I'm looking at it. But I get why he feels that way. It is hindering him for sure. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with having hundreds, if not tens, maybe 10, 15, 20 candidates on that ballot if they want to do that, or even more. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, and what's really interesting too with the whole 1,000 signature things, while you were talking, I looked up the most recent population number from that riding, which is from 2021, and it's 108,000 people. So like that might seem like a lot, but do you know how hard it would be to get 1,000 unique signatures for each one of those candidates?
Mm-hmm.
Like Calgary has what, 2 million people now?
1.4 about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1.5 million people, and it's hard enough here.
Yeah.
But I should add quickly here is that even if you get 1,000 signatures, doesn't mean all 1,000 people are going to vote for you.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So I think we have to realize that that's an important thing to take into consideration here, is that just because you get 1,000 signatures doesn't mean you'll get 1,000 votes.
Yeah, but clearly those 1,000 people that chose to sign felt that anybody that wants to run should have the ability to do so.
And I think that's important to take into consideration, because you shouldn't be stopping someone who can prove that they're worthy to be on the ballot. I think that's more the issue, rather than the fact that Pierre Poilievre thinks it's unjust and whatever. I think it's about giving people the right to run if they can get those signatures is the important thing to consider.
Well, and then here's the next thing he said, since you bring it up. So the libertarian candidate, who, like, this shouldn't surprise us at all, called it a mockery of the democratic process and said, "This flood of joke candidates doesn't just waste voters' time," Harris wrote, "it actively hurts serious independent third-party candidates who are working hard to give this riding real alternatives to the status quo."
Yeah.
I guess my question is, why is this libertarian candidate, Michael Harris, a real alternative to Pierre Poilievre, more so than these other people that are going out of their way, believe in a thing, are protesting? Like, arguably, I would say anybody who's trying to, like, throw out Pierre Poilievre in any battle is clearly somebody that cares about being an alternative to Pierre Poilievre.
Yep.
Sure. You could say that about anyone that's running against Pierre Poilievre in that particular riding. And they already did it once, by the way.
I should run in Battle River.
Which is why he's running. Like, it's not an accident that the guy that happens to be the MP for the most conservative riding in Canada stepped down. Like, come on. What was he promised? I don't like to lean into conspiracy theories, but, like, that guy was told by the Conservative Party, you don't have a choice. Like, you're stepping down, and you can either get something out of that, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's politics.
I have something to mention real quick, because I pulled up his Wikipedia page. Immediately following his resignation, lobbying firm Upstream Strategy Group announced that Kurek would join the company as a principal to provide tailored government relations, public affairs, and stakeholder engagement solutions for Upstream's clients in Alberta and beyond.
Yeah,
so that's probably what happened. Was like he got connected to a lobbying group that's associated with the party, right? Not saying that's definitely what happened, but like
it's definitely what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to lean into those things, that side of it, but I'm going to say, like, the fact that the potential libertarian candidate is bringing this up is a bit problematic and a bit an issue. Like honestly,
Libertarian candidate of all people.
and that's the thing. And you have to look at this side. And the way I see it is that if you have the signatures required, independent signatures, you can run. Like I think that is fine. Like, and I don't think that's an issue. It's like saying the libertarian candidate is not an alternative and shouldn't be running as well. So like you have to take it in. Yes, it's annoying. I agree. It's very annoying to go through ballots like that. And
Democracy can be annoying.
but at the same time, it's democracy at work. And it's just like when you talk about whether they're actually legitimate candidates, it's just like throwing a parachute candidate into a riding. Is that even a legitimate candidate? You tell me, because people say, I want to throw a name into this riding because we're not going to win. Well, that's not a legitimate candidate, but they still win. Like you see what happened in Quebec and other places with the NDP wave. So they still have a chance to win no matter whether you run or not. So what is legitimate or illegitimate candidates? It's up to the voters to decide who they feel is the best. If one of those random people on the longest ballot win, right, then who cares, right? They're still MP. Look at all those people like Ellen Brosseau. Look at all those people with the orange wave. They were parachute candidates and people who didn't even live in the riding, and they were throwing their names on the ballot and they still won, some of them. So I don't think you can define what a legitimate and illegitimate candidate is until the voters decide that's actually who they want. And so they can throw it who they want. So I think that whole thing, it's not a real candidate, is a problem. But I agree, right? But at the same time, you cannot say it's not a candidate, because look at what happened with NDP. And some of them actually moved to the ridings after they got elected to live in the ridings. So you can't define it until the voters decide who is actually a real candidate or not.
God, I hope it happens again. That'd be so funny.
And I'm sure this will happen for years to come, because of Pierre Poilievre. If he gets back in, they'll probably try and vote him out again.
Yeah.
Well, and see, okay, so I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. But one of the actually, no, it's a good segue, because there's been several articles that I've seen just talking about how like Pierre Poilievre could lose and it's not like signed and sealed. He's also refusing to talk about the Alberta separation stuff because, of course. But here's the problem. You're running in the most conservative riding in the country that happens to be in Alberta. And the whole separatist thing, kind of an issue right now. We're probably going to be voting on it in 2027. Thank you, Danielle Smith, for wasting more fucking money. And so I kind of wanted to get your take on this hilarity of, because I want people to understand in other provinces that might be listening to this, that don't get false hope.
Yeah.
This is the most conservative riding in the country. Pierre Poilievre isn't losing. That's why they picked it. And it just like pissed me off that even while I was preparing for this podcast, I came across 5, 6, 7 articles talking about how he could lose. So like, am I just completely out to lunch here? Like, there's still the conservative movement here. Like, there's no way he's losing Battle River. Northern Alberta? Rio.
I mean,
Have my back here.
No, I have your back, because to me it just comes across as lazy journalism.
As much as I would love that, it would be so funny.
Oh yeah, it would be hilarious and awesome, but like, it's a 91% conservative riding, like pretty consistently if you look at the voting history too. So like, there's not really any chance that they're ever, like, the Conservative Party is ever going to lose there. So Pierre Poilievre is definitely going to win in that riding. The question is, how much is it going to be by, and is it going to be 91%, or is it only going to be 89%, because there's like, 50 different candidates on the ballot and some people get confused, right? Or maybe some people actually feel that the Republican Party like reflects their values better, right? Or some
And that'll
people,
be the interesting part, I think, actually.
well, that's the other thing too. And like, you mentioned separatism in Alberta, and like, from what I can find in just, again, very brief internet research, like the sentiment isn't as strong as like the media or Danielle Smith make it out to be.
No, it's 77% of Albertans in the last survey weren't interested in leaving Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a waste of money.
Yeah, but like, Pierre Poilievre now has to toe that line of like appealing to these voices that like have a
Are
problem.
in his writing.
Yeah, that are in his writing. And like in what was it? There's an Alberta by-election recently that had a separatist run. And like
It was the old writing. I know,
Yeah.
because Rob's stepdad thought it was hilarious that guy got less than 100 votes.
Yeah.
He was posting about it the next day, whom, by the way, is now like a liberal NDP voter and is a white boomer who owned like 4 businesses and would regularly have yelling matches with me about Jason Kenney, until one day he turned to me, well, everyone was out of the house, by the way. Don't think I didn't notice that, Pete. And said, I think you were right about Jason Kenney. And I was like, wait, I need a recorder.
Yeah. Say that again for the camera, please. Right. But yeah, don't get your hopes up that Pierre Poilievre's not getting elected. He's getting elected. He'll be
The
back
majority
in the
of
House.
people are not my father-in-law.
Yeah, especially in Battle River Crowfoot. So German.
Yeah, I'll say this thing and just say that the conservative candidates or relatively conservative like candidates have received like 80% of the vote averaged. So there's no way he's going to lose this riding. At least if he does lose the riding, it'd be the biggest upset that you'd ever have in the history of these elections. And honestly, like it's just like my riding becoming liberal. Like that's not going to happen. At least not in my lifetime. But like I get why people want to write that story. It's a great story headline. It's a bit of a catch point, and also, like you said, it's lazy journalism for sure. But at the same time, is it likely? Not really. I'd like to say it'd be a great story for sure, but at the same time, it's not going to happen. They chose this writing on purpose because they knew he would have a chance, even if there were like hundreds of parachute candidates in that writing. He's still going to win. He may not get the 80%. He might get the 65%. Or even 70%, but he's not. But at the same time, he'll probably still win. I'm not going to say he'll win because you never know in these elections. But
He's
the
gonna
likelihood,
win.
but
He's
the
gonna
likelihood, the likelihood he's going to win is probably very high, right? And very probable. So I don't think he'll lose the seat. If he loses, you know how big that story would be. Battle River Crowfoot picked out the former leader as well.
If that happens, there's just going to be a short on our channel of me obnoxiously laughing for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like at Pierre Poilievre.
And I can tell you, if that happens, the Conservative Party is going to flip.
They will lose their shit. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
I really want that to happen. If I had like 3 wishes right now, I don't know. One of them might be that.
Maybe some divine intervention might help. Like maybe we need to get some divine intervention from the Pope, right?
I mean, to be fair, if Pierre Poilievre loses this election, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket because clearly, like, the fucking like hell has frozen over, the cow has jumped over the moon, like something weird has happened. I might actually win that.
Okay, so
Like-
serious question.
Uh-huh.
It's not a serious question. If he loses, do you think it's because he wore his cowboy hat backwards and was drinking American beer at the stampede?
It might be a factor for sure.
Yeah, that would totally play into it.
There might be a factor in it.
I really
sure.
enjoyed that meme. Made my day.
But
Yeah.
honestly, he's going to win with like at least 70-something% of the vote. There's no way
Well,
around.
and I think that's sort of the thing, right? I think that if he doesn't win, I didn't look it up. Rio, maybe you could like do some Googling for me while I'm talking.
Sure.
But if this MP won by 91% of the vote this last election, and I'm pretty sure it was in the 80s or 90s. And he drops down to something like in the 70s, that's really significant. He won't. It'll be probably by the exact same margin, if not more. And we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about Carney, but Albertans right now are really heavy on the
Because
Carney's just like caving to Trump. He's not good for us thing right now. As a side note, you guys will appreciate this. I commented on something about how Mark Carney's just a red Tory, and somebody called me a Pierre Poilievre conservative lover.
I mean, Like,
I was looking at the vote total just off of it weighted a bit, but the lowest it's been for percentage of vote is 70%, which is the lowest for the Conservatives in the past 2 decades. So,
Yeah.
like, honestly, if he gets anything above 70%,
Is the percentage for this
fine.
past election there?
It says 83%, so 82.8.
Yeah. So
Like the one before was 71. So you can factor it's about 80%.
no, and Poilievre is a guy those types of conservatives are gonna be like, hell yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would say if it's anything above 70%, he's fine.
Yeah.
Like, which will probably be closer to higher 70s, mid to high 70s, if not 80%. Maybe even 90s, depending on what happens.
Okay. So, sorry, Rio, did you have something to say about that?
I also just wanted to mention that apparently in the 2023 ballot, there were also a crazy amount of candidates. I'm not I didn't do the count, and I'm just
in Battle River.
Yeah, I'm just reading the Wikipedia page here, but a lot of these are independents, and I'm not going to do the count here, but it's definitely more than just your typical parties. So.
Interesting. Alberta kind of does have a lot of that goes on, though. It's interesting.
Well, even in my riding now, I remember seeing a few independents on like the federal ballot, and I was like, this is weird. Like, this is Southeast Calgary. This is weird, but yeah.
Okay, so German mentioned he'll be okay. So that's like a perfect segue, because I want to talk about his upcoming leadership review in January, because we're starting to see, A, he's been super quiet. B, there's more rumblings from media that have contacts within the Conservative Party that have been talking about how, his support might not be as solid as one might think. And it's quite interesting to me because since Harper got booted by Justin Trudeau, every single loss the Conservatives have faced since 2015, which is the last decade, the leader has been ousted after an election, even when they've said, like, oh, my leadership support is strong. Like, you can go back and find clips of Andrew Scheer right after talking about how, like, leadership support was strong for him and he didn't think it'd be a problem. And then lo and behold, when they came up to leadership review, they stomped him. What's really interesting in some of the articles I've been reading is Andrew Scheer's name is coming back up for a leadership run. Conservative leader. This is where we're at. So,
okay,
and just as like one final thing, I'm wondering if part of this is because a lot of Conservatives, if you noticed on like following the election, like just even that night and sort of over the next few days, we're basically clamoring over one another to get on politics and Power and Politics on CBC and other news programs in the country. And a lot of them said openly, like, it was wrong to silence us. Like, and they didn't like say, like, they had no qualms about it. There's at least like 3 the day after the election that talked to Power and Politics, David, whatever his name is, about how like they thought it was the wrong move to only have like that one voice being Pierre Poilievre, right? So I'm almost wondering if like between that, his inability to pivot and losing a 40-point lead could ultimately not really matter in his like in this, right? And then you just add in the Andrew Scheer rumors on top of that. It's just like amazing to me. So I guess my question is like, thoughts? Is he still gonna like are the Conservatives, do you think that the Conservatives are gonna be like, no, we need more stability? Or do you think that they're once again gonna oust? Because I guess my other question in this is the Conservatives in this country, they always rely on that split on the left, right? Like Canada is a liberal, at the very least a center liberal country as a whole, right? Like we want social programs, we want universal health care. And one of the big things Poilievre didn't do was cater to the middle. And I know people get mad at me when I keep talking about it, but Carney is not a liberal. He is a red Tory. He is a center guy. He happens to be a conservative banker billionaire that also cares about the environment.
Yep.
So thoughts? German? Do you need to think about it?
Yeah, that's tough because like I'm kind of, not to say on the fence, but honestly, I think he will struggle with a bit of the thing. There's be certain people in that party that will come out and not support him at all, regardless. But at the same time, I feel like that he may have the support of some of the ones that he needs to get. But I know he has a leadership review anyway coming up, and so that's going to be the test of it. Do I think he stays on past that? That's hard because, like, people tend to come out of the word work, especially when he's not really there, right? But
Well, that's kind of the thing, right? He's not in parliament.
The thing about if he can win this riding and win it somewhat handedly, he might actually be able to retain that support. But at the same time, if he starts to get like maybe 70, maybe even around the 70 ranges, he might struggle to get that support because people might say, well, you reduced our vote count in that.
And you fucked up in Alberta.
And you screwed up. But at the same time, if he's getting 80 or 90, I think people might just say, I'll throw my support against him, even though he probably shouldn't be the leader. I'll throw his support because the stability is more important. And I think people are starting to rumble with things like, I know this is another topic, but it's about Carney, about hating the Trump and stuff like that. So I think people are starting to
get there.
Yeah, that we're not there yet. But people are starting to get really kind of anxious and a little bit kind of trying to find holes on Carney. So I think that's could increase his support with that party for sure.
Well, and I think it kind of already is. And I'll elaborate that on in a minute. But Rio, what do you think?
I mean, I've mentioned before, like missing Andrew Scheer era conservative politics and like
just be a normal jackass.
Yeah, like just be a normal jackass. Don't be a Pierre Poilievre backwards cowboy hat drinking Coors in Calgary kind of jackass, right? And like
during a time when like America hates Canada.
Yeah, and like Canadians are mad at America. And like we were talking about this before we hopped on, but like Coors is what you drink when you're 18 and you don't know any better, right? Like it's not the beer you drink
when beer, dude. You live in Canada.
Yeah, it's not even good beer. You get the good beer when you're like, oh, I'm 19 now and I understand that beer can taste better than piss.
He has the money for good beer, guys.
Yeah, he just chooses to drink Coors, so keep that in mind.
So much worse. You choose to drink Coors.
Anyway, back to the politics and not just bashing his beer choices. Like the thing is you mentioned this before, Nick, of like the Conservative Party just ousting, and like nationally, I think Pierre Poilievre kind of has that like image problem, right? Because like he wouldn't have fumbled a 40-point lead if you didn't have an image problem. And like, if this was just Alberta, like Danielle Smith was on her leadership review, she would pass no problem, whatever. But like, this is like he has to appeal to the rest of Canada, and I think the Conservative Party would actually like look at that and like with all those MPs stuff going on, like Power and Politics, would be like, no, you shouldn't have silenced us. Like, those are people with influence in their own communities, right? And those are people who would absolutely influence their parties within their communities and be like, hey, no, like maybe we shouldn't be going with this like Coors drinking jackass anymore. And maybe we go back to Andrew Scheer, right?
Well, and it's interesting too, right? Because Canadians said no to Pierre Poilievre so loudly that he lost his own riding. Yep. And hardcore NDP voters ultimately did flip. I mean, we've talked about it before too. Like some of them flipped to the Conservative Party, which is like super interesting that in some places and in very specific industries, like border towns and stuff, the Conservatives managed to convince union leaders and stuff that they were like the party for the people, which, side note, like, how does this keep happening? The Conservatives are not for the worker. Neither is Trump. Jesus Christ, people. But a lot of NDP voters did move to voting for a billionaire because they were so afraid of Pierre Poilievre. And so like for me, if I'm a conservative, we haven't been in power now for a decade. I would be looking at this and saying, like, maybe we need a change of methods here, because this idea of like stomping on democratic rights really did start with Harper, and any millennial that was paying attention during that time, and like Gen X would know that this kind of started with Harper when he threw the media out, and he was like, I'm sure part of his advice was like, don't have the media on your bus. Like, that's the worst thing for you. Yeah, I don't know. German, you look like you are deep in thought.
Yeah, that media thing is a bit of a rabbit hole to dive
It
down.
is. We should do an episode on just like media and politics.
Yeah, that media stuff is a bit of a rabbit hole. And
I'm writing that down.
And I think, that's a media thing is one issue, but I also think the fact the control is another issue of rights. I think that's a big issue too. And now you see Pierre Poilievre coming and giving his first interview with, I think, was it Rosie or one of them anyway, right? And that's the first time they've had him.
Did he get interviewed by Rosie? Oh my god, I have to find this.
Well, he did an interview for sure. It might not be Rosie. Pardon me.
I want it to be Rosie.
It's definitely a first interview that he's ever had since he's been leader. So anyway,
he hasn't done any interviews since he was leader?
No. And I was kind of like shocked. And that is a problem, especially being a party leader of a national party that receives like half the votes most of the time.
Jesus Christ.
And so like that's such a big deal for him to actually come out and admit something and actually come up.
Yeah, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like thinking about it, most of what I've seen from him is just like him uploading from his own YouTube site.
No, he actually had an interview, and they said it was the first interviews he's had. By the way, the election is August 18th, 2025.
Oh, okay, it's sooner than I thought.
So it's like in a month. But anyway,
that's a dumb time.
That's such a
They're gonna have low voter turnout.
They probably did that on purpose too, right?
Well, but that's not up to them. Like,
yeah, it's not up to them, right?
Yeah,
that's not up to them. But anyway, beside the point, I digress. But at the same time, I think that interview that he gave.
Oh no, he did it with Catherine Cullen. That's
just
funny.
Still CBC. Let me tell you. So I think we need to. I think we need to have a debate on CBC one day, because there's a whole story coming out about one of the reporters of Canada Tonight with Travis Danraj. So I think we need to talk about that at some point too. But beside the point, like Pierre Poilievre having
on the list,
having a media interview with Catherine Cullen of the CBC is a big deal for Pierre Poilievre. He's never had those interviews.
Yeah, so that speaks volumes. He's worried.
He's worried, but also I think he feels like now he needs to come out to talk, and now he's not blinded by
CBC. Media. He could have picked literally anyone else. He's scared.
I know.
That's funny.
And that's interesting, like to have him talk to Catherine Cullen and CBC, which CBC is supposedly the most liberal type of news outlet because of what's happened with that Travis Danraj situation.
The only thing that would have been funnier is if he'd done it with Chantal Lebert.
That'd be another story. Great. That'd be interesting. In
French, she'd be like, "We doing this in French, bitch."
Yeah. She probably would, and I'm sure she'd love that opportunity, but I don't think he'll give her the interview. He's already given CBC, right? So he's definitely worried, right? So it's interesting, like I think he's trying to change his strategy, but at the same time, is people going to see through that? I don't know. Let me throw it to Rio. I want Rio's opinion on this.
I mean, my focus is mostly just that, like, it's that image problem, right? So him going to CBC is probably him trying to kind of repair that a little bit by being, oh, look, I'm not totally hostile to the CBC. I'm actually like, look, I even showed up and I talked to people on it, right? Mm-hmm. So like, it's
for that 14 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah, 14 minutes and 30 seconds out of what in the past 20-ish years, right?
2022 is when he got the leadership.
Yeah. So like, oh, okay, 3 years then. I was thinking like since he became an MP, but still
is.
Honestly, yeah. But 14 minutes in like 3 years it's not a lot, right?
For the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada.
Exactly. And like CBC is like it's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's the one everybody at some point has either like watched or like at some point just encountered.
Or hate watched.
Yeah, watch it. Yeah, watched or hate watched or at just some point encountered. Like I remember Nick, this was at our last job. One of our former bosses was very like, yeah, I listen to CBC Radio 1 and 2 all the time. And I just looked at her. I was like, you're that weirdo, huh? Like, but that made me go like, okay, maybe I should try it. And then I tried it and hated it. But like now I watch CBC News every morning on my
You did a
internet
good
only
thing?
TV.
Wow.
So yeah. Anyway, all that is to say is like I think it's just him trying to like do a little bit of like, oh no, look, I can totally still be like pro Canada and like Canadian friendly. Look at me, but for me, and I say this is a hostile source, so like keep that in mind. Like I don't think it's going to do very much to help because he's spent so long building this like anti-CBC like rhetoric into his party, and then like all of a sudden you're shifting like when you're facing leadership review. Like for me, if I were conservative, I would look at that and I'd be like, hell no, like you just flopped on something. Like that doesn't show me that you're committed to your principles. It shows me that you're committed to your paycheck, right?
Yeah, and I think Pierre Poilievre, like he's trying to smooth over his image, but is it going to work? Probably not, right?
I
So,
don't think so.
and like what they say? They say he's not pivoting, but he's stepping lightly around a few things. That's what Aaron Weedy of the CBC said. So
That's funny.
So like it's like I don't know whether it will solve the problem. He's gone back to attack Carney. You see what he's doing now. So like is he able to kind of offer constructive criticism of things he would do? Doesn't seem like that.
Perfect segue into Carney. Let's talk about that. So Pierre Poilievre has been in the last few days super critical of Carney's what appears to be caving to Trump. Carney has come out. Obviously, he's still talking to Trump. They're trying to do a deal. The big thing that he came out against was because Carney and the Liberal Party backed off their taxes, which like it was a dumb policy. Like that policy was stupid anyway. And Carney had a very good like explanation of the policy behind it. But why they didn't do that before Trump whined about it? I mean, I know why. It's because it was going to give them money. But for me, like if you're an economist that is coming into the role as prime minister and you're trying to do these trade deals and you also need to look at like economic policies, I feel like seeing that on the table might have triggered your memory that was on the table, and maybe you should deal with that shitty policy because you know that Trump, clearly he knew that Trump was going to have a problem with it. And two, it would just like give them more. So like, why wouldn't, and three, it was clearly something that Carney didn't care about and was willing to just like hand over. So like, why didn't you just, when you were cutting things like the carbon tax, like why are you not looking at these shitty policies and pulling them? But anyway, I digress. Pierre Poilievre had said that like the problem with that is that he caved to Trump. And of course, a lot of Canadians were coming out and they're like, dude, you're making us look weak. Like Trump's not gonna give us anything in these negotiations if you keep caving to like what he wants, right? And of course, yesterday, Carney said that the deal with America could include lumber quotas. And so I guess for me, like, I'm super frustrated because Trump doesn't want a trade deal. And like, even if we get some kind of new deal or whatever, he could like just throw it out the window in 3 days. But at the same time, like it's super complicated, right? Like Carney needs, and pretty much every world leader needs to, Angel, stop it. You're making me lose my own train of thought. Every leader needs to sort of like evaluate that situation and tread lightly because America is the biggest economy in the world, right? They can't just like tomorrow cut off America. Like Carney's been talking a lot to European leaders in other countries and trying to get in like economic deals and stuff like that. And so I guess I'm just wondering if we think, are world leaders going to be smart here and basically give Trump his soother while they're sort of like off to the side making their own deals and trying to like undo 80 years of America making themselves like the center of everything, so they can kind of like undo that so that the world doesn't get put into this situation again? Or are we giving politicians and our billionaire banker way too much credit? You guys talk about that. I'm gonna make Angel get out of my office.
Jeremy,
Okay.
you want to go first on this one?
Sure. It's pretty loaded, your thing. So let me bring it up in this way and try and decipher through. In terms of like the issue whether Carney is caving and Trump wants to deal or not, to be honest with you, I don't think Trump wants to deal, right? But if you look at it this way, Trump is one of those people, just in general, that is not going to solve these issues, right? He's kind of like it, like he can't even finish what he starts, if that makes sense. Yep. Carney caving to Trump, I can see why people think he's caving, but at the same time, look at who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a narcissistic, you're dealing with a global leader who really doesn't care about making a deal. So I think when people say Carney's caving, I can get that, but I kind of don't, because it's like, look at who you're dealing with. You're not going to get anything regardless.
But then Trump. That begs the question, why cave? Just tell him the fuck off. But and that's kind of the perspective of Canadians that are pissed, right?
Yeah, and I think people have to understand Carney's trying to see whether he could get something. But I get why those Canadians are pissed, because you need to stand up to Trump, but at the same time, how much can you really strum to Trump? You can't knock sense into this guy. We talked about before. He is not going to be rational. He's going to be irrational, and he's going to be a narcissistic personality. So maybe it's just him trying to say, like, we'll give you something if you actually want to do something, but maybe it's kind of caving and people are upset about it, but maybe he's just trying to play around with Trump a bit to say, like, we're trying our best to come to consensus, I think. But at the same time, Trump, he doesn't want to deal.
He's not an adult. He doesn't think like that.
He's a kid. He's technically a kid throwing a
toddler.
tantrum.
He's not even a kid.
I think there was something about his toddler. He's a toddler throwing a tantrum or whatever. There was something like that around this week. So I think people have to realize that I think Carney's just trying to say, like, we'll give you concessions, but at the same time, we know Trump will not agree to those concessions anyway. Yep.
So then do you think that this is like, are the politicians smart enough to realize they do need to unravel this 80 years of bullshit American rule?
Yeah, I think it's going to get to that point eventually at some point.
I mean, we know that Germany and Poland are there.
I think it will, and I think Carney's smart enough to know, but at the same time, I think he's trying to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, which I get, but at the same time,
I don't think that's too far.
How much can you negotiate with irrational, narcissistic personality? Rio, why don't you take that on?
Yeah, and like, I actually saw an interesting bit on the CBC earlier this week about how like Trump doesn't really use trade deals like the way that they're supposed to be used, right? As like an active way to like advance your economic interests. He uses them as a political tool to kind of like strong arm concessions, right?
What he does in general.
Yeah, which is what he does. Exactly. It's his playbook. That's how we suddenly ended up with a fentanyl czar, which like
fentanyl czar.
Yeah, and like I don't know what the fuck that guy's been doing for the last few months, but like I guess we have him now and we're paying him a lot of money. But that's
that their czar is fucking insane too.
Yeah. But like that's his playbook, right? So like I think people saying like, yeah, Carney's caving to Trump, it's like, well, you're caving to someone who's probably going to change the deal in like 3 days anyway, because like the goalpost moved from fentanyl and the fentanyl czar to like, oh well, there's not enough, like you're not paying us enough, or you're not buying enough stuff from us, and like why is there a trade deficit here, or like the goalposts keep moving, and Donald Trump has always done that too. Like since 2016, the goalposts have always moved, and like back to me doing my stupid grad school research stuff because I'm crazy. Like he fuels his own disinformation machine because that makes it easier for him to wield power in a way that allows him to be like, yeah, you know what, let's just continue to move these goalposts whenever something that we don't want happens, and then we can say this thing that we did want to happen happened instead, right?
Somebody remind me when we talk about Epstein at the end to ask Rio if he thinks that Trump will be able to spin misinformation enough to get out of this one. Continue.
No, that was the end of my analysis for this.
Oh, perfect.
So, like, I'm good. Don't talk about Epstein because, like,
German, any last thoughts? I mean, we all kind of know where I sit. I just hope the world is smart enough to sort of end one country having so much sway.
I'll just say it this way: it's just about message control right now. So that's all.
Yeah, I mean that's politics 99% of the time, right?
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that one.
Okay, let's move on to our last topic because we don't have time for the other two. We'll catch up on those next week or the week after, depending on when we do our next. Actually, it will be the week after because next week is our AI episode. Next week, AI. That'll be fun. Rio's running that ship. But until we talk about that depressing thing, let's talk about Epstein. So we're in a minute going to watch this, like it's just 2 minutes long. But I want to back up a little bit because I mean, I'm not going to get into like all of the back stuff on Epstein. If you've been under a rock, just Google it and go get like caught up. But was it last week, I think, Musk, who is clearly pissed at the Trump regime right now, tweeted out about Epstein and that Trump is in the files. And clearly, Musk was doing that to try to cause a ruckus and a stir because he's mad at Trump, which like makes me so happy. And Trump and basically everyone in his regime was thinking like, oh, this is going to blow over. It'll be fine, whatever. Unfortunately, Epstein was one of the things that he ran on and said, like, we're going to release the files. When Pam Bondi took over, she was like, we're going to like get to the bottom of this and release the files. And then funny enough, last week, or like right after this all kind of like blew up, she was quoted as saying, no, there's no files. Doesn't exist. So Trump has now been throwing a temper tantrum because it's not only normal people that are both Republican and Democrats that are pissed about this. His base are starting to burn MAGA hats. Like his base is not happy. A lot of these people leaned into a lot of different conspiracy theories, especially around Epstein. I have my own thoughts and opinions on Epstein and the whole like suicide thing. And, you know, I'm just going to say like he committed suicide during the Trump regime in the first time around. So like, I'm just saying there's some like smoke around this whole thing, but it's not just Trump. So I'll just leave us by saying, like, remember people like Prince Andrew have been photographed with Epstein over the years. Oh, let me think. Clinton, huge Democrat. Like he's been on leading up to the election and after the election. Like Stephen Colbert called him a great guy. And I was like, do we not remember him taking advantage of Monica Lewinsky? You know, the whole power situation and like being photographed with Epstein, but like, yeah, cool. So we're going to come back to that, but I just don't want people to like turn this off and then go to the comments and be like, you're just going to say it's all Republicans. No. So let's watch what Trump said about his base. And can you guys just like give me a thumbs up to make sure that the audio goes? Because, you know, sometimes I have a problem with the audio. Okay.
I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. Frustrated by the growing questions, President Donald Trump lashed out at his own supporters.
They're stupid people.
Over the nonstop criticism of his handling of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
He's dead, he's gone, and all it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats.
In yet another blistering post on social media, Trump said those who keep asking questions are weaklings and said, "I don't want their support anymore."
I lost a lot of faith in certain people, yeah.
Is it incompetence or lying? I mean, that really is the question, is it not?
Trump's biggest backers have spent years pushing conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein's death in prison and claims of a client list featuring the rich and powerful. The White House even held an event for conservative influencers, handing out what it claimed were some of the Epstein files. But last week, Trump's attorney general abruptly announced there is no client list and that Epstein died by suicide.
Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
Asked about his own well-documented connections to Epstein, Trump responded by drumming up a new conspiracy theory.
I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden,
One recent poll found just 3% of Americans are satisfied with how much information the government has released.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
Meanwhile, Trump keeps telling his supporters to look away.
Don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
That's not how many in the MAGA movement see it, as the president leaves his base with more questions than ever about Epstein. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Okay. Lots to unpack there in just like that little clip. But let's start with just like Trump himself, because he was clearly deflecting, being like, "Oh, it's boring. Like you wouldn't be interested in that." For anybody who maybe is under the rock, Epstein was charged and convicted with not only human trafficking, but human trafficking underage girls. And unlike the media right now, I must have read 8-10 articles today who were referring to, and even some podcasts, referring to the underage victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell as underage women. These were not women. These were girls. Just to be clear, there's a difference.
These were children.
These were children, not women. So that is just a side rant. But it's just so interesting to me that Trump's like, "No, deflect. This is boring." And so I guess the more I read about this and the more I was seeing that his base is pretty pissed off because they want answers and they're hoping that it's all the Democratic names in these files, right? Why they don't understand that Trump's name is definitely involved in this. Trump spent, that's not the only footage of Trump with Epstein's. There is so much footage out there. Pictures.
I literally Googled pictures of Jeffrey Epstein through the years, and there are pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein as far back as the late 80s, early 90s. So
he is
guys have had a
documented as
very
being
long-standing relationship.
Yeah, they have had a long-standing relationship as being acquaintances since the 80s. 100%. I mean, Donald Trump and Epstein have both been photographed together with Prince Andrew. There's a reason the royal family basically booted out Andrew. They aren't stupid either.
We're acquaintances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously, a lot of these MAGA people are hoping that these pedophiles are going to be Democrats, and they are. Let's not
It's not just Democrats. Let's just throw that out there now.
No, it's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's independents, it's just general rich people. It's the royal family.
It's also maybe the Saudi royal family. A couple articles I just pulled up have said that Epstein was in regular contact with the Saudi crown prince.
Yeah, there's also connections to Maxwell and the Israeli government. Like it's he had like a big organization, and I'm sure that was part of why because everybody kind of knew it was happening, right? And I think Epstein felt that he had the political protection basically around the globe to continue to get away with it. And you know, the crime junkie in me and the more drama in politics than I probably would like to admit that makes me kind of interested in it. At the end of the day, is there part of me that thinks that Epstein maybe was like coerced into committing suicide? Maybe. But the more probable thing here is he was like, oh shit, all of this stuff is going to come out. Now I'm in federal prison and I know things about really powerful people. So there's, of course, two problems there. Number one, am I going to get raped over and over and over in prison for being a girl trafficking motherfucking asshole? And number two, am I going to get murdered in a horribly painful way? So, like, yeah, he probably did just commit suicide. Go ahead, Rio, before I continue.
Sure. I have an opinion on the suicide thing because I'm very much in the like, yeah, no, there's no fucking way. Yeah. And like, I would also just want to mention that an article came out today that 3 minutes of footage was missing from the Epstein prison surveillance video.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that's
like,
been known for the whole time. Yeah.
yeah, but like still, and then you're telling me that the cameras just happened to turn off. Like,
Well,
and
I
then-
think the going thing is that like Epstein was basically like, this is what I want to do. And the guards were like, whatever. That's like pretty much the like going assumption from anybody that like doesn't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? Because what's his face, the guy that's running the FBI now, was hugely into that conspiracy theory. And like literally 2 days after he was sworn in as FBI director, he was like, there's nothing to see here. He committed suicide, which is all like very weird, right? So like, just putting all of that stuff aside, though, this is the thing that could take Trump down. 100%. Like,
Yeah.
people don't like pedophiles.
Yeah,
They don't. But
unless the goalpost suddenly moves in a really fucked up direction.
But it won't be, because Bill Clinton's name's on that list. Other powerful Democrats are on that list. Other powerful billionaires, funders that fund Congress's like
The
what are
super
they
PACs.
called? Why am I blanking? When they
Lobbyists.
like run, like when they run, right? They're like, they fund these candidates.
PACs. Political action committees, PACs.
Yeah, exactly. So like these people are not in a rush to expose any more of the Epstein files than needed. And I think a lot of people in the Trump regime that understand politics more than Trump, who doesn't want it to come out for obvious reasons because he's guilty as sin, understand that it's not good for anyone in politics for Epstein to come out. It's not good for the Clintons. It's not good for Mitch McConnell, probably. It's not, like, no one. It doesn't matter unless your name is AOC, who probably is impacted by it, because I bet you there's a funder of hers that she doesn't know about that is on that list.
Yeah.
And so, like, this could be the thing that takes Trump down, but I don't think it will be, because I think everybody in politics is going to want this to go away as fast as possible. And now I'll shut up and let you guys talk about your thoughts on this, because it's just fascinating to me.
You go ahead, German. I've already weighed in a couple times.
I'll just say it's a bit of a mess and a bit of a situation that it's going to affect everyone involved.
If you think that's messy, I have another bomb to drop later on this.
But it's definitely a messy situation. I'm sure there's other bombs, but like honestly, it's going to affect everyone going forward, right? And Trump is scared, right now,
Very
and Trump is really worried, and he's afraid. So there's no surprise with what he's doing, and there's no surprise with what's going on. But at the same time, are we shocked by what Trump does? Oh no! Like look at the association acquaintance. He's a friend of this guy, and look at all the other people associated with it too. There's lots of juicy stuff in that situation too. So it's not surprising.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Okay, so here's the bomb, since then Rio can just like talk to all of it. Maxwell has come out and said that she wants to testify in front of Congress on Epstein. Yeah, I thought this would please you. But don't get too excited, because the question is this going to be her being like, I have a lot of power here and I can tell like what has actually happened and basically everything, right? She was the right-hand woman and the one that ran all the girls. Or again, the more conspiracy theorist in me that just like itches to come out sometimes, is this a case of, okay, so she wants to do this, is she just going to say what the Trump regime and other politicians want her to say in exchange for, I don't know, a pardon when Trump's going out the door?
Yep.
It's not that far-fetched, really. So Rio, go.
Yeah, I know. And like the conspiracy theorist in me, and like I know we're not supposed to spout conspiracy theories on the show, but like the conspiracy theorist in me is definitely like, we all know like who's on the list probably.
But
And,
he also has a pattern, right? He pardoned everybody that committed violent acts during the insurrection on his behalf.
Yep.
So
like,
it's not that far of a stretch to say, okay, Maxwell, if you're going to go testify in front of Congress, here's the deal. When I am going like outgoing president, like when it no longer matters to me, fuck the rest of the Republicans, I will give you a pardon.
Yep.
Then it's up to her to gamble. Does Trump live to the end of his presidency? He's old.
Yeah, he's 81. So he's 81, well over 200 pounds, and like recently diagnosed with something. I don't remember what it was called. But like in my view, you're probably right? Because like we know his playbook as well is very quid pro quo. You do something for me, I do something for you. And like she could probably go in and the other thing too is like she could just go in, spout a whole bunch of bullshit and lies, and then instead of like get a pardon for that as well, right? Because like we all know that like it's very easy to lie. I'm a 50-foot elephant, like I'm purple. Like it's easy to tell lies, and like they can't really verify it, right? Aside from what the investigation has showed in the files, which they're not going to release
To anyone.
Yeah, to anyone, right?
In Congress.
So like the conspiracy theorist to me is like, yeah, you're probably right. She'll probably just go in, either spout a whole bunch of bullshit or like tell the truth, like spout a whole bunch of bullshit and get pardoned for that on top of what she did, or tell the truth and then just get pardoned on her way out by Donald Trump as like he's on his way out, right? And like it's entirely possible. But yeah, that's part of me really, yeah, but also part of me kind of hopes that like someone in the FBI will just like make a whole bunch of photocopies and then just like leak the documents, because like the people have the right to know, and one very principled FBI agent.
Yeah, but he got rid of anybody that wasn't a loyalist.
True. But
they literally, so there was somebody that came out, he was being interviewed as like an FBI agent, right? Like a junior. And he went to the news organizations because he said on that first test, they asked him if Biden won the election in 2020.
Oh my God.
That is like dictator fascism loyalty testing right there.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't really rely on, because anybody that is left that is like, this guy's insane, is just going to keep their head down.
Yeah.
German thoughts on this? Like crazy.
It's crazy for sure. It's very crazy, and it's like, and I agree with everything that's what he said. It's a bit of a situation there, right, and a big situation that has to be dealt with. Again, I'm not surprised by any means. So, like, there's nothing to be surprised, and there's nothing really to really say in terms of whether it's expected or not, right? It's what's going on, right? And it makes sense, right? Exactly what's it's and they're scared, and that's what I'll keep on coming back to. Is there's the whole scared and frightened and everything, and so there's a lot of stuff that hasn't come out and won't come out, or even will come out. So there's a lot of things that need to be addressed there, right? Eventually, at some point.
Maybe. So I guess my final question on this is this the thing that MAGA, and so the Bulwark was talking about this yesterday, and Sarah on that show, she has always said, like, once Trump gets into like the 30% approval range, that's sort of where you go after him, because the rest of those people are the like hardcore megas. That's like the 30% of his base, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she was saying, like, this seems different. Like, if there is, say, a Democrat or an independent or somebody with a conscience that can just basically keep beating on this, can they turn mega people? Like, between the immigration stuff and kidnapping people's wives and husbands and partners, which is like a whole other thing, because more and more of this keeps coming out where people that voted for Trump are married to somebody who isn't an American citizen, who then gets deported, and they're like, what do you mean that I'm getting what I voted for? I didn't vote for this. So I guess my question is, can this be the thing? Or is it too politically ingrained that they're just going to bury the fuck out of this, and the Democrats just are going to say it's not worth it? Because I just worry that the thing is, to take Trump down on this will take a lot of them down. And like, I'm all here for it. You're all a bunch of disgusting human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think power and like preservation of self is going to outweigh here.
Yeah. The cynic in me agrees, because like, you are, and we've talked about this because I've brought up the Dictator's Handbook several times, right? Where like, if you're in power, you want to do everything you can to keep power. And if all of a sudden several Democrats and Republicans are implicated in this, giant child pedophilia ring, like, you're threatening both your own party's power going forward as well as the other parties. So like, do you want to deal with mutually assured destruction? Probably not. Because are you ever going to win? Probably not.
Well,
right?
and I guess that's kind of like the thing that I, for some reason, didn't even think about, because it's not just about like those Democrats that were like involved in that.
Yep.
Fuck, that's even more depressing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
German, say something like optimistic here. Be like, no, they'll all do the right thing.
I'm sorry, Nick. I don't have any optimistic thoughts here. It's just it's a messy situation, and it's a really bad situation and a horrendous situation. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Could it bring down Trump? At this point, I don't think it could bring down Trump, because Trump has always been kind of somewhat invincible, right, as people like to call it, and immune to these things. Look at all those other scandals he's gone through, and look at all these problems. If anyone can get through it, Trump will get through it. He'll find a way to figure out to kill it, let alone hide it, let alone bury it, let alone throw it into the trash.
Misinformation, asking Rio. Can he do it? Can he spin it?
I mean,
and
finish your thought, German. Then
no, I was going to say, like, and knowing Trump, he'll find any way to do it. He's that type of personality. If it was anyone else, they would get in so much trouble. But knowing Trump, he'll find a way to get out of it.
Yeah, and like, back to the misinformation, disinformation bit, and like I mentioned this before, that like Donald Trump has fueled his own disinformation machine since 2016, and like, it's also worth noting that a lot of the disinformation machine that currently exists wasn't totally intentional by a lot of these companies. It just kind of happened to work out because that's what's most profitable. But because of that, and just the way that like social media is set up, like Facebook, Twitter, like YouTube, even like wherever we post this podcast, value and prioritize controversial and like, controversial and like hostile media, right? Because people engage with it more. You get mad at something, you're more likely to comment on it, right? So what's likely to happen, and like this is kind of not kind of depressing, super depressing, is like, Donald Trump will just continue to just fuel the disinformation machine in like various ways. He'll just continue to distract, pose, like throw out whatever new information comes out for like other things. All of a sudden it goes from like Epstein to Russia and Ukraine to like, oh, we're doing this to like, Iran and nuclear weapons again, right? And like all of that serves to filter out what's actually happening with the Epstein stuff or with anything else, really. So like what's probably going to happen just kind of going forward, courtesy of the disinformation machine that is modern social media and the internet, like I don't foresee Trump really being taken down by this. I see him maybe taking a few hits politically, but German's right. In a lot of ways, he is kind of politically invincible because he's so ingrained into the Republican Party as well that you get rid of him, you're effectively like burning down the whole party at this point.
Okay, so new question. Do you think it kind of depends on what the Democrats do here, right? And like any Democrat can also bring forth articles of impeachment.
Yep.
Is there any world in which this gets bad enough where Republicans and Democrats that know they either have a donor, were involved in it themselves, are connected to people like the Clintons, Democrats that kind of want to hide like that the Clintons were involved in it because like we've seen the pictures. He was just as bad as Trump. We know about Monica Lewinsky. I'm waiting for her to comment on this shit. Like, I listen to her podcast all the time. If you don't listen to Monica Lewinsky's podcast, guys, you need to look her up because it's amazing. And so I guess my question is, if that fire starts to burn, do the Republicans throw Trump under the bus and go full swing? Like, we all know he's a liar. Like, look what he's done, to save their skins, because as you said, he might be able to like pardon himself on the way out the door before they like finish impeachment, and B, save the Republican Party from that downfall. Like, is there any world, I mean, probably not, but is there a world in which Republicans go, oh shit, we need a scapegoat and none of us are going to be able to get out of this, so let's move forward? Any world at all, any political situation where you can think that they'd be like, shit, this is in my best interest, we need Vance. We're going with Vance, guys.
I mean, I hope so, right? And like, as fucked up as this to say, like, let's go with Vance, because like Vance isn't any better, but like
that's a whole other thing we can talk about later.
Yeah, that's a whole fucking
not
other
today
thing.
But another day.
Yeah, and like I think there's a whole lot to say about, I hope so, and will it actually happen is the real thing. That's the $1 million question, right? But for me, I think I can see a situation where like that would be it, right? Where like everyone in the Republican Party realizes we can really easily scapegoat this guy for like being a problem. The problem there is like you risk giving up what have effectively become Republican strongholds in like, Florida, right?
But do they? Or do they spin it as we're coming to our senses now, guys? Like, I don't think they would lose their Republican strongholds. I just can't see it. They might lose the next election, but Tucker Carlson is currently on like a hard pitch to be the next Republican nominee. That's pretty clear from the shit he's saying. Jesus. So I don't know. If I'm a Republican looking at this, I'm looking at it and going, well, we might lose the next election, but our next nominee is going to be fucking Tucker Carlson anyway. We need to take out that son of a bitch because he's pretty young. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. I think there's some like real political maneuvering here that could happen if that fire gets hot enough. I don't know. German?
You guys are more optimistic than me. But I personally I think it's gonna be very difficult for it to happen. Trump's just too ingrained right now, right? And that's the big issue I think I'm having. But at the same time, could it happen?
Losing his supporters. They're burning their MAGA hats.
But could I see it happen? For sure. It definitely could happen. But at the same time, I feel like that Trump is just way too holding on to this party thing. Like he even is pondering running again. Like I know you can't do that constitutional wise, but he's pondering
But
running.
is that more of a reason for them to just stomp this guy out?
I
He's
honestly,
just gonna die before he can run again. He's 81 years old with
but
like
but at the
big
same
mass
time,
heart.
but at the same time, I'll just finish the thought here that honestly, he's just too ingrained. And knowing Trump, he admires Putin. He wants the same power Putin
Well.
has. And that's the thing, right? And so, like, honestly, he's going to hold on to that power as long as he can, and he's going to try and do what he can to keep it. He's going to be successful.
but
That's another story.
Did you see what he said about Putin yesterday in the White House?
I've heard a few times
about how, like, okay, so for those of you that don't know, Trump was asked about Putin, and he said, and I quote, Biden, Obama, everybody else was fooled by the sick person that Putin is. And I was like, excuse me? but I can't be fooled.
And like he admires Putin. He has this strong
still
affinity
admires
for this guy.
Putin.
And he also wants the power Putin has, which he'll hopefully never get in the States. But who knows at this point whether that will become close to that. But you know,
I think it depends on how much the Republicans don't want to fight him. Like, where's their line? And where's their like, because at some point they have to kind of collectively happen to come together to be like, we need to oust this guy, or we're like even worse. Like, they're already not even doing their freaking jobs in Congress as it is.
You have to realize that those United parties always try and toe with the party line. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's the big issue. That's another issue in itself. And like that's why we need politicians that stand up when it's hard and also make a scene when it's hard. But also they have to speak up, and they're not speaking up. They're not doing their job. That's the problem with politicians just generally. That's why people don't like them. Right? So we have to like, that's what they need to do. They need to do their job, but they're not doing their job. So I don't know how else to put it. Right? But the US is bad for that. Extremely bad for that. And the Canada's not any better, but the US is really, really bad for that.
Yeah.
So there's a problem there, and that needs to be solved. Otherwise, Trump's going to keep on steamrolling and whatever. Even though they say they're against it, they're not going to vote against it and not going to push him out, and that could cause Trump to even stay longer if he wanted to, because of their inability to stand up and do something about it.
On that note,
sorry, I'm not very optimistic, Nick. I'm kind of like I'm really pessimistic about what's going on in the world, if I'm honest.
I am too. It's just like a really interesting kind of rabbit hole for me, right? Just like, what will it take for them? And are they looking for a situation where they can oust Trump for whatever reasons? It's just an interesting thought experiment. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to leave it there because I have to eat dinner and I have another thing at 7:00 and it is currently 6:51.
Yeah, and I need to eat dinner too. I think we wanted to go for dinner. I don't think we will, but
yeah. So thanks for listening, guys. Don't be too mean in the comments, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, where we talk about AI and disinformation. You're welcome.
Yay. Goodbye.